Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Long Walk Talks. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined today by my two co-hosts, Stan Wilson Lee.
Hello.
And Chris, insert nickname Barnes.
I've lost all sense of social appropriateness.
And we still don't have a good nickname for you. How's Chris? I've lost all sense of, what was it you just said? I've lost all sense of social appropriateness,
yes.
Barnes?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little long.
That's a long middle name. It's Catholic.
And it's just too bad that we were not recording for the conversation immediately prior to this about murder hornets and executioner wasps. It was truly titillating.
I tell you, check out the executioner wasp. It's fascinating how this guy went through the sting index and sting pain, the sting pain index, which is an actual index that I
want nothing to do with ever.
And it's the bullet ant, it's the desert centipede, it's honeybees, and all these different wasps and hornets. And
it sounds like it'd be a fun thing to watch while sitting on your couch drinking a beer, going, "This fucking guy."
The bullet ant, for context, is named that because if you get bit by it, it feels like you've been shot.
And that's exactly the description he has.
For a sense of scale,
yeah. It is intense. And you end up going down
and that's on the lower
hole.
End of this scale.
And I know this is off topic, but you go down a rabbit hole when this guy is so fascinating, and the fact that he was brave enough to get stung for the rest of us.
It's like that joke on American Dad about getting sucked down the rabbit hole of watching snake bite videos. But anyway,
don't go down rabbit holes, kids. That's where the murder rabbits are.
That's where the murder rabbits are.
But we're not here today to talk about murder rabbits or murder hornets or executioner wasps.
We're here to talk about something important.
Yes. Taking a break from our Quarantino coverage, we are going to be talking today about video game movies.
True art.
Yes. A very hot button topic because for a long time, video game movies were regarded as pure trash, mostly because for a long time they were pure trash.
I was telling you about this. I was like, watching video game movies, I mean, even today to a point, you kind of have to grade on a curve.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Mostly because when they were adapting them, they really didn't know what they were doing. You were handing it off to people who hadn't ever played video games before. I mean, I think now, at least for the most part, they're getting better, or they're going to get to some level of quality because people care. People care, and people who grew up playing them are now in charge of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's not always a tried and true thing.
You know, I'm just now realizing that we're talking about video game movies, and not one of us picked anything by Uwe Boll.
I have purposefully avoided him because he is the reason you have to grade on a curve for the most part.
Which he's not Underworld, is he?
No.
Which movie did
House
he do?
of the Dead and
he
Alone
did
in
House
the
of the
Dark.
Dead. My pick was
Blood
almost
Rain?
House of the Dead.
Blood Rain.
I haven't seen.
How
Blood
do you mess up a concept of vampire fighting Nazis?
I don't know, but he did it.
Yeah,
because House of the Dead is one of my favorite games.
There was a Dungeon Siege movie, In the Name of the King, that had Jason Statham in it.
Yeah.
Did he do that?
He did the Postal movie.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as a multimedia entertainment podcast that primarily talks about movies, it's always a little difficult to not just rip off what How Did This Get Made does sometimes on here. And we do that. We've done that occasionally when we've done coverage of things like Assault on Devil's Island and whenever we do the Christmas movie coverage. But for that reason, I didn't pick something like Super Mario Brothers or Double Dragon, something that How Did This Get Made has spent a lot of time making fun of. I had to avoid that
too, because it's not just How Did This Get Made that's done that. Like, I think everyone's had a take on the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah. You kind of... As one of the forerunners of video game movie adaptations that got it so hilariously wrong.
It's like, how did you adapt it into this? Why did you make it dystopian?
Why make it dystopian? Why make their last names Mario? Like their names are literally.
That might have been one of the genuinely funniest parts of the movie.
Because it's Mario and Luigi, whatever, right?
In the video games they don't have last names. In the movie they're Mario, and Luigi Mario.
I think they were banking off the fact that it's the Mario brothers, so it's Mario and Luigi Mario.
Yeah, it's special. Awesome. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend doing it for free when you're drunk or high.
And it is Bob Hoskins, right?
Yes, Bob Hoskins, old shame.
In what he single-handedly called the worst movie-making experience of his life.
And Dennis Hopper. Let's not forget that Dennis Hopper was King Koopa.
And John
he's the bad guy,
Leguizamo
right?
as Luigi.
Yes.
And that's one of John Leguizamo's early movies, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's not okay. It's not a great movie, but it has a charm, and I have to qualify that by saying I love the Street Fighter movie.
I thought about that one too.
Me too.
And I had a strong feeling, Chris, that you would pick Double Dragon. I don't know why I thought
honestly,
that.
I've seen it before, but I've never been super invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's so wildly different from the actual game.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about. It's like these were like the big games of the day when Nintendo exploded, and these got treatment, and then they just got turned into I don't know what.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I will say,
but they were products of their time, though. I think
they were.
I've never actually seen the Mario Brothers movie all the way through. Maybe cuts and glimpses of it, and I think I've seen cut versions of it, or
TV edits,
and never like the actual, or maybe like alternative ending versions of it or whatever.
There isn't really one.
But the idea that for the period that it was made, I guess, I mean, and it was coming off of, Bob Hoskins and Who's Afraid of Roger Rabbit and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, I guess they could be considered, decent films.
No, not this one. This one doesn't work as a film on its own or as a video game adaptation.
No.
Super Mario Brothers is just flat out one of the weirdest movies ever made.
Are you common in that belief, or because?
Am I common the rapper?
I mean, is your point of view a general point of view of take on because it seems like so many people are fans of the Mario.
Well, not,
if they are,
they're not fans in the genuine sense.
Yeah, no, they're fans in a so bad.
It's
fun. It is
fun.
It is a fascinating movie. Don't get me wrong.
For all the wrong reasons.
For what they did, it's fascinating. But anyone who's played any number of Mario games is like, how did this get to that? It shouldn't have. And in fact, actually, the good news is they are in the works making another Mario movie, but it's going to be animated, and I think it's going to be more like the games is. Or have that look.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But when you talk about video game movies, we won't spend any more time talking about Super Mario Brothers, but when you talk about video game movie adaptations, Super Mario Brothers is like the seminal work from the early 90s.
Right. The example.
Yeah. But one of the other seminal works is one that Stan is going to talk about. Stan, kick us off. What movie did you watch?
I have to preface it with the fact that I wasn't sure if I would be even have very much contribution to this discussion, because I play a lot of video games, but again, I came to video games late, and so the fact that I play so much now is because I'm like catching up for lost time, and I've just discovered recently how much I wish I should have been doing this a long time ago and stuff like that. So I was never the one to go and see an adaptation of a video game in a film, and unless it was really good or supposed to be really good. So I never saw, the early Silent Hills. What's the space movie, Deep Space or whatever, the vampires in space, or not Pitch Black, Dark Space or something like.
I have no idea what
you know what
is.
I'm talking. Dead Space.
Dead Space.
Which I probably should have seen, because I hear that's actually pretty fucking scary.
The video game is fucking terrifying.
And I haven't played the video game yet.
But I don't think it's gotten a movie adaptation.
They did some sort of animated movie, I think.
They did. I think that was like a bridge between the first and second
The only
games.
space one I can think of that comes to mind is they did adapt Doom terribly.
I almost watched Doom Annihilation last night, too.
Oh, that's right. They tried again. No.
But so I had trouble. It's like, okay, maybe I should use this as an excuse to see the Silent Hill films.
I will say Silent Hill 1 is I saw that in theaters. It's
good. Yeah,
it's not bad. I get the feeling that they thought that they might not have a chance to make another one, so they kind of rolled the the plots from like 1, 2, and 3 together.
Yeah, and I've played Silent Hill a little bit and loved it.
Yeah.
The whole, and I think it's like a startup to, The Best of Us or The Rest of Us and stuff like that. The Last of Us, thank you, sorry. Which I can't wait for the second one of that, by the way. But I need to get a new console.
I hope it's good, but I've been hearing things.
Really?
There've been massive leaks, but
the idea that the relationship aspect of the games started coming out during that time, and that it carried over into the film. So I thought about maybe doing Silent Hill, and then I remember, I'm watching Witcher. So and I discovered the Witcher video game series, and then I'm like, wait, The Witcher is more based on the books.
And when you asked me about that, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I know that it's a video game. And then I realized, wait a minute, wasn't it also a book first?
It's based mainly on the books, but there's so much connection.
I was going to mention that too, but I didn't, because it's like, well, something to talk about is how it basically became more common knowledge through the video games. So,
yes.
So
absolutely.
essentially seeing it differently, it's sort of differently adapted via Netflix and the books was probably a jarring experience anyway.
And I hadn't read the books before I started watching this, playing the game, right? So it's like, and I got the books. I got the books from Rebecca actually for my birthday one year or Christmas or something. And you're Rebecca,
Former intern Rebecca.
Former intern Rebecca. And so I thought about doing The Witcher.
God, remember when we had interns?
Remember when we were like...
What a glorious life that was.
Before time, yes.
BI, before interns. After interns. But anyway, this is a long story to lead
There's
up.
a lot of build up, yeah. What movie did you end up watching?
I ended up doing...
wait, one quick aside. Did you hear for the longest while that the author of the Witcher books hated the video games?
I did, but The Witcher 3, man, I think is when he started liking them.
Well, actually, what happened was when he first negotiated for the rights, he just took a lump sum because he didn't think the video game was going to go anywhere. And then it grew into this massive thing, so he was mad because he hadn't had a chance to get a cut of that, basically. And understandable. It's like, understandably, when they approached him, who would have thought, right? It was when they approached him, it was like the 90s, and it was like... So it was understandable why he did it at the time. It's kind of understandable why he was upset then. But then I think between Netflix and them, because I think they renegotiated for a cut of the games, and he got the thing from Netflix.
Yep.
So he kind of settled down, and he was actually more receptive now.
Because Netflix, based on the books, as opposed to based on the games.
And it's understandable because it's like this thing that you worked so hard on all your life, and now other people are reaping massive rewards for it, and it's like, well, fuck, I wish I could have been a part of that.
but The Witcher, great game, and the series is great too. Henry Cavill is a much better Geralt than he is Superman, so it's like
who is a massive video game nerd too. So
and he's great. He's wonderful. But what I ended up picking, and I didn't do like the first in the series, just like I didn't start.
No, you did not.
This is even more puzzling.
I didn't do the first game in the series when I started doing it, but like I said, I came to games late, so I think the first Resident Evil I played was 3 or something like that. A little
arguably one of the best.
But the one that really hooked me was when Chris Redfield comes back for 4.
Leon Kennedy.
Is it Leon Kennedy?
It is Leon.
Leon is 4. Chris is 5.
Yeah, Chris.
Okay, I know. I've played 4 and 5 multiple times each.
And Claire's in one of them. Is Claire in?
Claire's in 2.
So she doesn't.
She's in 2, Code Veronica, and.
So I know of the characters based on the one that I played, which is Resident Evil 4 with the lake monster, which I can never get past. So that's as far as I've gotten in that game.
Literally the second level.
What's the one with the zombies in Africa?
That's 5.
That's 5. Yeah. So I played it with you, David,
in Africa.
where I could never get past like the second or third incident of there's no place you can go.
The first time you encounter a situation where you just have to survive long enough to get extraction.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's horrible.
The tagline might as well, for your first playthrough at least, the tagline should be "Good luck, fucker."
Yeah, at least with 4, you can get through stuff and get to the lake monster and
I don't know about 5, but 4 also had this system where it wouldn't tell you, but depending on how often you died or how well or how you were doing, the game would ease up on its difficulty or make it harder.
Yeah. And
it would keep track of that in the background.
So saying that I've never gotten through a whole Resident Evil game, but I have gotten into the lore of the Resident Evil, and again, Resident Evil sent me off to
the lore of
Dead
Resident
Rising
Evil.
and stuff like that, which I think is great, a great game series and stuff. And I guess they've made movies of Dead Rising too. So
Animated ones.
Here's a quick rundown of Resident Evil lore. It's canon until it isn't.
But anyway, the Resident Evil movie, I did pick a Resident Evil movie, but not the first one.
Or the second.
Or the second one.
Or the third.
Or the third.
I picked Resident Evil Afterlife, which is the 4th in the series, and I guess there's been 2 since then.
Yeah, there are 6 total.
Resident Evil Afterlife takes place is from 2010, and it's the 4th in the series, and it's the second one that Paul W.S. Anderson came back for after doing. It's the first one that he did since the first movie in the series. Again, him and his wife, I assume him and Mia are married, right?
I think they still
Mia
are.
Jovovich, who plays...
Yep, that's her.
I think you added one too many.
Who plays Alice.
Who knows?
Since 1.
A character made up just for her for the movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was wondering that because
For
I don't
her to
remember
do all the cool things.
Alice in any of the games that I
No.
played. But what, and I think I picked Afterlife because
It was streaming.
it was, but 3 of the first 4 were streaming, I think. Not the first one, but the second, the third, and the 4th are streaming on Netflix. And I think you can rent or something the other 2 or 1 or whatever. But anyway, again, so I started with Resident Evil Afterlife, which takes place in LA for the most part, and this is after. And they have enough, and which makes it a decent thing that they have enough exposition at the top of the movie that you can. So they had shit in Las Vegas that happened, and so they went to this place. They wanted to go to this place in Alaska, some refuge where there was supposed to be no infection and stuff, and they could be safe and they have food and stuff. And so when Alice is able to go, she has a. And I'd seen the previews to this movie and saw that there was clones of Alice, and that she was fighting alongside like 15 other of her or 60,000 of her, and it actually takes place in the prologue of the movie, and so you have 18 to 20 Mia Jovoviches fighting.
I think when it's plural, it's Alice-I.
Fighting the greatest Mr. Smith impersonation of all time. It's Mr. Smith from
Agent Smith.
Agent Smith from Matrix, and the guy who plays the character of
Wesker.
Albert Wesker.
Is portrayed in a very, very. I thought it was a hilariously right-on impersonation of Hugo Weaving as.
Oh, that's how they've always had him be in the games. I think since they brought it. Well, since.
He is that in the game.
Since around Code Veronica, they just had him become this.
We don't have enough hours in the day or enough podcasts to talk about the entire lore of Resident Evil.
And like I said, it's bananas.
And besides, we're going to need something to do in 2021 after we've finished talking Tarantino.
Here's something funny about the movie series to me versus the games for that.
So you've watched?
No, but I know enough.
I've seen the first 2.
Okay.
I've seen the first one way back, but I've seen playthroughs of enough of the games.
Yeah.
I will say it's an interesting concept because they sort of do and then undo the thing that specifically Wesker and a couple other characters have been trying to do throughout the Resident Evil games, and that is decimate the world with the virus.
with various types of
and then take over.
lettered viruses.
And then basically be the strongest living in what happens after, which they technically do in the movies, and then somehow it's just retconned out, I think, in the last part of the series as not having happened.
I have no idea. I watched.
It's T-virus in Afterlife.
Well, they have different strains of it in the
the
games.
G virus, the C virus, which is especially ironic right now.
But what got me,
Sure.
and I actually enjoyed my experience watching this.
Good.
I did, and I know enough. I've read, and researched, or not researched, but Wikipedia'd enough of the
Research.
Underworld and Resident Evil franchises.
Did you say resident?
Did I say resident?
I think you did. But the word research implies some level of professionalism from this podcast that just isn't there.
Well, I researched Pulp Fiction, but no, I have it called up here in my
That is in fact Wikipedia.
But I actually enjoyed the experience, and maybe it's because I started late, and again, haven't been involved in the game as much as real fans are. So it's like they are going to pick apart the movies, and I went in knowing that it's going to be this really lacklusterly acted movie, but there's some of the CGI and some of the stunts are pretty but because it's bullet time from Matrix, so I know it's a rip off.
That was still cool.
I know it's a rip off, but they did a halfway decent, and they did some knowingly meta things with it. It's like, we're doing bullet time. There's no pretense that we're not. So it's like we're going to do
and
some
also
interesting
basically
things.
by Resident Evil 5, Wesker's character had evolved to, what if Neo from the Matrix was an insufferable jackass?
Yes, and in Afterlife he's implanted himself with the virus,
Right.
He tries to do that to Alice to take away her powers, but it actually, I guess, enhanced her powers.
Of course it did.
But anyway, and she thanks him for making her human again. But I think what he had injected was some kind of it latched onto her T cells and stuff like that, and made her less. She couldn't do any of the cloning, or she couldn't make 15,000 of herself, and she wasn't as fast as usual, and she could be killed. She wasn't immortal. So I know enough about the character of Alice, and I thought she was a character from one of the games before.
Oh, no.
But what Afterlife does, it brings back Chris Redfield and Claire Redfield.
Yeah.
And it also brings back Valentine. Jill Valentine, too, which she'll be, I guess she was in Extinction previously, the third one, and I guess she will appear in the next one, which I think I'm watching Extinction tonight, by the way. But anyway,
I feel the need to point out real quick that I'm looking at the cast list for Afterlife, and there is a character in this movie named Kmart.
Kmart. Is she not in?
Spencer Locke. Her character is listed in the credits as K-Mart, like the now extinct store.
Because that's where they found her.
Maybe that's the subject of Resident Evil Extinction.
They found her roaming around the lot of Kmart, and so she totally, and she's like a teenager.
Did Kmart pay for this product placement?
I'm sure at that time that would have been 2007 Extinction, so probably, because that would have been at the time they were.
Oh, this is in Afterlife. I'm not even looking at Extinction.
Extinction, she is.
Oh my God, you're right. She is in Extinction as well.
Because Extinction
people demanded more Kmart.
Because Extinction takes place in Vegas and introduces a lot of the characters that show up.
What is this weird road trip buddy comedy bullshit?
It kind of is, because after 1 and 2,
okay,
they've established all the stuff that the games established.
I wonder what happens in Resident Evil Vegas Vacation.
But here, wait. What's his face? Tig from Sons
Kim
of
Coates. I was just
Coates
looking at that. Stop hitting the desk.
Is in Afterlife, and he's awesome and evil.
Not where I thought that was going. I definitely heard a
horrible. I heard the start of horrible happening.
There is horribleness to it, but he's Kim Coates. He's
All right.
awesome in his horribleness.
All right. I'm saying right now we're canceling Long Walk Talks. We're canceling the Quarantino ongoing discussion. We are only from now on going to be discussing names of characters in Resident Evil movies because I'm looking at this, and in Extinction, the third film, Ashanti plays a character named Nurse Betty.
Yep.
Also, a little bit of crossover with your movie and mine. Lyndon Ashby from Mortal Kombat is in Extinction. That's fun.
Who was in Resident Evil Goes Hawaiian?
That's
the seventh one, isn't it?
I guess. Yeah.
But so it's Kim Coates. It's Wentworth Miller from Prison Break and the superhero show that's on.
Not the
Legends
same
of
actor
Tomorrow.
that played Wesker in Extinction, turns out.
Oh, it's not Sean. What's his face?
Yeah, they it looks like they Dick Yorked Wesker.
Oh, really? And then, but also and I don't know if he's in the rest of the films, but one of the scariest creatures from the Resident Evil games I played was the canvas bag over the head dude that either has a chainsaw or a mallet, a meat tenderizer with a scythe on the other side.
He's from 5.
He is from 5.
He's from 5. Yeah.
Because he's an awfully tall version of the chainsaw guys in 4. But they actually, the CGI is good enough to make it this. He's basically one of the cave trolls from Lord of the Rings. Is basically what he is, and he totally cleaves this guy in half, man. And it's a pretty decent boss fight. And of course, it can't be the big boss fight because that's what's his face at the end. But there's some nifty. It's a horrible film. It's really bad, but I had a great time watching it just because I was able. And they don't really fight that many zombies, but they do. And these zombies are more like the pedalhead guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah, that one was out of the 4th and 5th video games when you'd shoot one of them and their heads would explode into
the Plagas. Yeah, the Plagas would do that.
And they have dogs that do the same thing. Their head opens up and their teeth are on the pedals too.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right, well, this is disappointing. It looks like I have to bring Long Walk Talks back, and it can't just be a Resident Evil movie names podcast because the weird names dry up after the 4th movie, apparently.
But the 5th and 6th one probably do, don't they?
Oh, no, I've been looking at the cast list, and no, it's people with normal names like Doc and Lee and Michael.
What's a Michael?
Wow, and Kmart sticks around through number 6 as well.
She makes it all the way through. Okay, cool. Because I thought she might end up being a bad
Or maybe
person.
it's just 5. I don't know. I'm done trying to figure out the oral history of Kmart.
I understand where you're coming from. You're talking to someone who owns I think an England release, a UK release only steelbook of Street Fighter the movie on Blu-ray.
And I thought about doing it because it's Jean-Claude Van Damme. Right? I thought about because when I saw that 30-something years ago, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it's no hard target, but
that is a Belgian-born Jean-Claude Van Damme playing all-American Colonel Guile.
But that became a thing for him, though.
Playing the American action
dude
hero
with a Belgian accent.
Yeah.
Oh, it was him and like Schwarzenegger and even to an extent Seagal, who was ostensibly born here as guys who would talk like they had no business being American characters.
And they were in the American military.
Well, even as late as Schwarzenegger did that one movie as a small town sheriff.
Yes.
On the border fighting cartels,
which is actually really great.
I've heard it's really good. But again, Austrian-born man running around like he's an all-American with just a regular ass American name. Like if you just gave him like at least maybe like his last name is just Austrian. And that's fine. It's like who cares? He's an immigrant. Who cares? He grew up here from really young. It's like just do something.
Because he can be sheriff, he can be mayor, and he just can't be president.
It's like
he can be the sheriff mayor.
He can be the sheriff mayor, governor.
He's the sheriff.
And I wasn't sure that we would be able to generate this much discussion about this pick, and so it's like that's what I was fearful about, that I wouldn't be able to contribute much to the discussion because I don't normally watch enough video game based movies to justify it. But the fact that I know enough about Resident Evil and Silent Hill and stuff like that, and I think we're going to do it later, though, the ones that we have a wish list for.
Yeah, that'll be where there is a part 2 to this episode.
But seeing this, and I know you guys think I'm crazy that I want to go back and watch early because I'd spent,
I don't think it's crazy.
You're also
years,
talking to the guy who one night went on a Final Destination binge for no fucking reason at all.
which is one of my favorite series. But
which reminds me, we need to have an intervention.
Yeah. Katie had never seen the first Final Destination, so I was like, sure, let's watch it. And then she went to bed, and I watched 2. And then I immediately watched 3.
I can never watch 2 again.
Because now I actually kind of want to get back into playing the RE games. You know, it's like, because I didn't really have a need to do that because it's one of those, you know, because I'm really into the role-playing games that's not linear, you know, the non-linear stuff. So, and the Resident Evil stuff is very linear. And so it's like, and I always get stopped at a certain point. So it's like,
well, it's the perfect time because you've got the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes out.
Exactly.
And also, you know, quarantine and a virus outbreak going on.
Quarantine and virus, and it would be totally fitting.
At this point, it's just preparation.
Yeah, exactly.
And research.
And research.
That's what you call a callback.
But I'm not going to recommend, you know, you should go out and see any of the Resident Evil movies.
No.
But what it did,
But again, if they're streaming and you're drinking, it'd be fun.
Streaming and drinking.
And in fact, after hearing you talk about this, now I actually do kind of want to.
I have popcorn left, and it's like I got some whiskey left, so it'd be perfect for its extinction. But the idea that, and I'm trying to remember if I had started the Resident, but I think it was the Underworld films that I started, and it's like, and I knew everybody would think I was crazy for liking the Underworld films, but I actually watched like 4 in a row of them, and it's like, and I love the Underworld films, so it's like if Resident Evil is anything like that kind of series, it totally plays into my love for schlock.
Underworld is another one of those series, the long-running ones that I've only seen the first 2 of, much like Resident Evil. Never felt like I really needed to continue past that.
It's great that we're on a sliding scale because Stan's on the far end and I'm on the other end going, I hate Underworld.
I know you do,
and again, they're not good movies, but for genre stuff, and you know, if you want to see werewolves and vampires fighting, that is much better than the Twilight vampires and werewolves fighting.
I will never tell someone to not enjoy something because I don't enjoy it.
Except Underworld.
But I hate it so much.
Yeah, that's.
But I'm not going to stop talking about how much I hate it.
That's why I can't recommend seeing Resident Evil films, or movies or whatever.
You sold me. I'm in now.
But the idea that I had a really good time watching it, and it being something based, and I'm agreeing with you in the sense that, you know, because what they've done adapting Spider-Man or the Batman, you know, the
Arkham games,
the Nolan Batman Arkham games, to video games, but that's from screen to video games. But
well, really from comic to video.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, comic to game.
But the Arkham games are so Dark Knight, you know, so Nolan Dark Knight, and the Spider-Man game is so brilliant.
I think what helps is those characters having already been around for so long that they're so easily open to reinvention anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's especially one of the really strange things about the Resident Evil film series is the first game came out in America in like what, 96? As late as 96.
I want to say 96, maybe
95 or 96.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have a tiny computer in my hand. Let me.
96 might be one of the sequels, but I know 98. I think 4 was like 98.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Was 498 for real?
No, Resident Evil 4 came out in 2004.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I was playing it while I was.
Then I'm probably thinking of 3, maybe.
I don't know. Hold on, I'm looking it up currently. But my point was that by the time the first Resident Evil movie came out in 2002, they had almost a decade's worth of. Material to draw on. So the fact that they instead chose to create a brand new character in Alice and only cover the games themselves in broad strokes, it almost felt like the movies were very fan servicey,
fan fictiony
and fan servicey, and things that should have just been a straight up staple of the movie.
Yeah,
I think they were coming. They wanted to introduce like like you said earlier, a Neo character and sense of Alice that could do all these. But they do have umbrella corporations everywhere, though.
But
all right, so Oh, sorry, Chris. Go
I was
ahead.
just saying that kind of ruins it though, because the whole point of the first game was you are a team of professional like cops, but you're encountering something that you haven't before, so you're still kind of outmatched. So to have someone who's like, I've got this, is like kind of. The survival horror is the idea
Bayonetta.
Survival horror is the idea that like you're outmatched, and if you're not careful, you're dead.
Yeah, and you're out of your element.
Yeah.
All right, so Resident Evil, the first game came out in America in 96. Resident Evil 2, 98, 3, 99. Then they have all of these side games that came out, like
mostly
Survivor, Code
mostly
Veronica.
garbage that you can ignore. Even Code Veronica, which is, I think it's part of the mainline series, but it is kind of terrible.
Yeah, and then you had the remake of the first one that came out, the HD update, and Dead Aim, Outbreak. 2005, I was a year off, was Resident Evil 4, then more side stories, then 5 in 2009, more side games, 6 in 2012, more side games, 7 in
6, which I think the remakes have effectively retconned out of needing to exist, if what I heard was correct.
That sounds right.
Is the current remakes like remakes of the first couple? Or?
Well, so they had already done an HD remake of the first one a while back,
including all the side stories and remakes.
Yeah,
there's a total of 26 Resident Evil games.
Yeah. The thing is, the first one, and I think this happened after 4. Like they used the 4 engine to up-res the first one and give it the modern controls versus tank controls. So for the longest while, they had wanted them to do the next ones in the line, because the first 3 are kind of considered like the holy trilogy of the foundation of what the games are. Like 4 went off the rails in terms of plot, but it was still a great game that, because it was just wildly different.
It is really good.
It's wildly different, mostly because they had such a problem getting it off the ground that one of the failed versions of Resident Evil 4 they tried to make turned into the first Devil May Cry.
Really?
That's where that went. And then they tried to kind of veer it back into where it had been before with 5, but they also wanted it to be different. And then 6 is 6.
Yeah.
Where in a game where for the second time, well, it was like with the original games with 2, when they dropped the nuke on Raccoon City, that was kind of like covered up originally. In the second and third, it's actually retconned into the open. That it's like they broadcast that we're gonna have to bomb this city. Anyone who can hear this and isn't like a mutated zombie, get out.
And they're fast zombies too.
They are
because they're virus based.
Yeah,
they're virus
the
based.
new ones. Yeah, and the new ones they're even more polished, because they've been with all the increase in graphics and everything, they're more polished, and you have the option of you can use like earlier controls. You have the new controls, and it operates and actually essentially the games are different beasts than the originals.
Okay,
they don't. Because in order to streamline, they kind of move things around and change the order of events and things of what happens.
Would you consider, especially now, Resident Evil is still the best of the zombie games? Because I didn't. I was playing Dead Island and stuff first of all, and then I discovered.
In terms of like plot and difficulty and that, I think Resident Evil is. In terms of sheer fun, Dead Rising.
Yeah.
That one,
because that's relentless.
I could find that to be true, because Dead Rising has a game and stuff you're supposed to be accomplishing, but also has a more
I've always ignored the plot of Dead Rising.
It's got a
And
kind of a
craft like
GTA
crazy.
arcade feel where you can just run around and like fight zombies the whole time. It's kind of like in GTA when I don't want to do missions. I just want to run around and cause
Exactly.
havoc.
Yeah. And as far as like space zombies go, there's like we
Dead
talked about
Space.
Dead Space. That
Yeah.
one was really fun.
Yeah, the Resident Evil games have always been linear, as in you're
Again,
following a progression.
I have to apologize for making this discussion way longer than it probably should have been. But but the fact that you guys are true gamers from moment you were born to and
From the moment we were born.
I
to the
can't call
fact
myself
that-
a true gamer, but I
to the
have
fact
enjoyed a
that
game or two.
I didn't start until I was my late 30s at the earliest.
I don't think it matters when you start.
And regularly, not until I moved here in 2003 that I was really playing games. And so the idea of enjoying video game based movies is fairly new to me in the sense. And so it's like the idea that you gave me a topic I wasn't sure about, David, that I would be able to contribute much to. And the fact that I was able to pick a movie that I knew I was going to hate and then actually have an enjoyable experience based
I
on the
damn
genre.
near suggested, and I can't remember the conversation we have, but I was going to suggest Resident Evil just because I knew that you had played 4 and I thought 5 as well. But, all right, so that's the Resident Evil movie to video game comparison.
No, just kiss already.
Yeah, thank you. Chris,
I really liked it, actually.
And that's fine.
Chris, what video game movie did you pick?
Well, before I get to that, I just wanted to say one thing. It's like video game movies, I think, have had, not harder, but I think they've always had the same problem any adaptation does, and that's that fine line between the people who want a slavish devotion to the text or whatever it's adapted from,
Yeah.
and the people who want a little freedom to shift things a little bit. And I think it's always hard to walk that line.
Well, it's also hard to adapt when you consider most of these video games are usually at least 10 hours long.
Yeah, well, the newer ones, yes. And then there was also the problem of adapting Mario Brothers.
Well,
what
right.
was it? I mean, what was it? What you were playing? You were just a little man jumping between weird little levels, trying not to die.
Yeah.
How do you adapt that?
Well, not the
And
way
they
they did,
did.
but
No.
Donkey Kong.
Oh,
And
Once again, I'm going to say, if you
we haven't
can
even
find
talked-
it for free,
we haven't even
please
talked
watch
about
Super
Sonic
Mario.
the Hedgehog. Man.
Sonic, decent.
The new one.
Very decent. It was. I watched it while I was preparing for the podcast. I enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
a fun movie, and it deserves all the praise it gets. I mean, there's
So Jim Carrey's.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, honestly, there should be. There are probably things they could have tweaked, but the way they decided to adapt and characterize Sonic in this makes a lot of sense.
Good.
I mean, they did kind of slap a weird origin to things, but then again, that's not quite that different from Sonic games, which just kind of start things off in a weird place and go, "That's what we're running with. You're dealing with it." But fun. It was very fun, and I recommend it. It's honestly, and again, grading video game movies on such a curve that because I'm saying Sonic is decent is almost akin to and the award goes to. It's like that. I mean, think about I'll tell you what, one of my favorite arcade games is Rampage. They made a movie out of it. I'm not going to watch that movie based on the trailer I saw for it.
Is that with Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Uh-huh.
And the gorilla?
And his best friend, the giant albino gorilla.
Yes.
That's what's a video game?
Or the giant gorilla. It's George, Ralph, and Lizzie, as in the giant lizard monster, the giant ape, the giant wolf, who go around you play as one of them destroying cities.
Awesome.
I loved that game growing up because I played it on Nintendo. It was also one of the first games I beat and was kind of disappointed in the ending because all the ending is as you beat all the levels. Hooray! Start again.
Jumanji.
Shit.
Why haven't we seen a Kirby movie?
Oh my god, because how would...
It can be done.
Hubert.
It could be done, and there is an astonishing amount of lore they jam into those games that if you're not looking for, you'll just gloss over.
We have had Angry Birds, haven't we?
Yes, two.
Yeah.
2 movies.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
It leads into what my movie is anyway, because it's like that would be a very weird, disorienting thing because the whole setting is completely alien. That couldn't be live action. That would have to be animated.
Kirby?
Yes.
No, I want to see live action.
Who playing Kirby, though?
Okay, but then they would have to inexplicably put him on Earth somehow, and everything about that is weird because he never no like place he goes.
I'm developing this in my head as we speak. Go on.
No place he goes.
It's going to be a script tomorrow.
Every one of his levels in his games are some weird gumdrop playland where he sucks up enemies and digests them for their powers. Like I don't.
Yeah, no, and you know me, so it's going to be like some gritty noir Kirby.
You are what's wrong with the Mario adaptation. Except you understand what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Which makes you worse. Anyway, Detective Pikachu.
But not a sociopath.
Detective Pikachu.
I watched Detective Pikachu. And honestly, I'm glad this podcast came up because I had just, for some reason, just been putting it off and not getting around to it. So finally, the other day, I sat down and watched it. I'm glad I did because it's a fantastic movie. I loved it. This is the first time that Pokemon has been adapted into a live-action movie, and I think they did really well. It's basically a whodunit movie with Pokemon in the world where Pokemon are. And I think what's important is they took enough time and care to put into the design and how everything was built in the locales to show off that it's like this is what it would kind of be like to live in a world where these monsters of varying size but larger than you think. It's weird because it's like it's been jokes for years in the games because people look at the Pokedex entries of these Pokemon and you realize, oh, these things aren't little small. Not all of them are like little small creatures like about maybe like a couple like
a foot high,
like a foot or so high, and like some are because they're relative to the size of the real world creatures they emulate, but a lot of these are like 2 to 3 feet high, and they're big monsters, and they also live and walk around in the city with people, and they live with them as as pets or as wild creatures, and it's I think what's jarring it would probably be jarring to watch this movie without at least some background and having played or seen Pokemon before, because I mean the CG is good, but just trying to reconcile the fact that these creatures are also walking around constantly or just wandering around is a little jarring. But once you get used to that and you're watching the movie, they integrate everything really well, I thought. And it's a very simple movie about a young man. I think he's 21. At the start of the movie, he's 21. A young man who's kind of like he's due to disappointments in his past, he's just never gotten into Pokemon. He doesn't hate them, but he's just not interested in them. So he's just trying to get along with his life. His mom has passed, and his dad's out. Been living in a different city. He's out of the picture, and then he gets just word one day that his dad was in an accident working as a private detective, and he's passed, or they think he's dead. So he goes back to his dad's apartment to kind of look around and clean up, I guess, to clear out his stuff. And then he stumbles upon his dad's Pikachu. And lo and behold, as he meets him, this Pikachu can talk to him. He can understand it, which is something you're not supposed to be able to do. I mean, it's common knowledge. Like most Pokemon are named for the sound they make.
Mm-hmm.
So normally you would just hear a Pikachu say Pikachu, but he can understand it. He's insistent that the Pikachu's insistent that his dad is still alive. And after a couple of misadventures, they decide to work together to figure out what happened. And it starts a whole story that ends in a massive Pokemon fight in the middle of the city. But it's good, and it's good because they treated it seriously to the point where it's like, yeah, this is all real to them in this world. But they were also smart enough to kind of joke about it at the same time and be like, yeah, this is ridiculous at the same time.
The entirety of my Pokemon knowledge comes from that one summer everyone played Pokemon Go. So aside from that, I have no frame of reference for Pokemon.
I was going to ask if that's kind of a frame for the movie. So it's even more than just Pokemon Go.
Yes,
the world includes.
Yeah, you would need to have
like
some cursory knowledge. A little. I mean, they give you enough to know what you need to, but a little bit of like knowledge of some of the old the original stuff would be good going in. Not especially important, but you can still get into it without that.
I was going to say, so if you're a Pokemon virgin, you could still watch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny. I was trying to avoid the phrase, but it's like it's about as noir as you can get in a Nintendo-owned franchise.
The movie had me interested from the moment I heard that Ryan Reynolds was voicing a Pikachu.
He is, yeah.
So I do plan on seeing it at some point.
He is the main character's dad.
And I'm pretty sure it's streaming on Hulu.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in.
It's fun, and you can tell that like everyone involved and I think partially because Nintendo learned their lesson with Mario, they were probably more involved to make sure that it stayed more true to the game. I haven't actually played the game Detective Pikachu, but I looked it up, and basically the main difference is I think they shifted who the real main villain is of the movie. They like some characterization around, and they shifted a couple of other things around just to make it to fit more in line with the movie plot on the whole, other than how it was structured to fit like the game narrative.
Gotcha.
Other than that, it's pretty faithful.
How was the CG? Was it incorporated with the live action well and everything?
Yes. Again,
because it was nominated for an Oscar, wasn't it, for best anim?
Possibly.
I don't think so.
I can't remember, but it's very well done. In terms of like it's still kind of like it still kind of stands out to you, and I think it's because they can't make Pokemon look super realistic. Like they do make them look realistic.
It's not mocap, right? It is
not as far as I know.
Okay.
Well, they can't make it. They can look super realistic like they can with real animals,
right?
Like when they CGI them in, they can make them look as real as they can as animals, as in terms of what they look like in the games. So they still kind of stand out that way,
right?
But when they had to physically interact with a real person, it looked seamless.
And apparently, in addition to doing the voice of Pikachu, Ryan Reynolds also did the facial motion capture.
Okay, yeah, that was important for him because he was doing a speaking role. He was Pikachu.
Pikachu.
Oh my god!
I think my favorite single moment was seeing and this might go over you guys' head, but the Ludicolo Pokemon. It's like a duck-billed little swamp monster Pokemon that has a giant lily pad on its head, and it's in a bar helping serve drinks, and at just one point someone acknowledges it and looks over and it just goes Ludicolo and just shouts, and like it's just absolutely jarring.
Okay.
Sweet.
Nice. All right. So you recommend?
I do, and I think they traded off on that a little bit of how jarring it would be to see like a live action like Pokemon react to you. Also, one of the most adorable ones is there's a Pokemon based on a bulldog. It's a purplish Pokemon called a Snubble, and the police lieutenant played by Ken Watanabe.
I was just looking at that.
That meets with the main character after his dad's passing. He has the Snubble, and it's just seeing it just sitting there in the real world and being it's actually pretty. It's kind of like when in a Muppet movie someone is looking at Sweetums. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that reaction because Snubble just sitting there going, and it's not unhappy. He just has that kind of angry face, just like, it's a dog-based Pokemon, but it's not dog-sized. It is like the size of like a 3-foot person.
Oh God!
and it's like about as wide across as like about like a foot and a half wide across. It's like it looks like someone wearing. If it weren't like a real creature in that world, it would look like someone wearing like a park like a costume for a character in a park. But it's a real creature. So imagine living. Well, that would be terrifying for you, Dave. Actually.
Yeah, living in a world full of constant mascots. I think I'd be fine in a world full of Pokemon, though.
Yeah, see, I think. Well, that's the difference, though. Is like because it's not a costume person; it's a creature.
Right. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. In case any of the listeners don't know, I wouldn't exactly call it a phobia, but I am pretty freaked out by people.
Easily startled.
I'm easily startled by people in mascot costumes. I just don't like it. It's unnatural.
Well, especially because part of their shtick is to sneak up on you sometimes, and I get that because I don't like it either.
All right. So that's Resident Evil and Detective Pikachu.
That's right.
I'm going to round out the first
festival
part
tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to round out the first part of our discussion. The film that I picked was 1995's Mortal Kombat. This, out of every movie that I've
I have
seen,
to resist the urges as you talk. Just go do 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 do.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys will find this surprising or completely on brand. This movie came out in 95,
Yep.
and I saw it in the theater multiple times with my mom. After it came out on home video on VHS, I rented it so many times that my parents finally just bought it for me so that we'd stop spending so much money renting it. To say that I've seen the Mortal Kombat movie at least 100 times might be an understatement. It might be well over 100 times.
One that is on
This
brand.
is your formative movie, I guess.
One that is on brand too. That is adorable.
Thank you.
And I also, when I'm slightly older than you, but I also saw it in theaters when it came out.
I watched this movie so many times. It was my favorite movie as a kid. Now, I was 9 years old when this came out.
And this came out less than a year after Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. And I will say, like I told you, got it right.
Yeah, is that correct though?
Came out. Yeah, Mario Brothers came out in December of '94. I looked it up actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. For some reason, I had in my head that it was 93. But all right. So
now I'm
here's
doubting-
two examples
now I'm doubting
of
myself.
one who got it. Well, one who got it hilariously wrong. The movie at that time was like a combination of the first two games, which had not a whole lot of backstory. So it was
that's the thing. All the lore was on like a text on like a track screen.
Exactly. Yeah, that would scroll by when the game like wasn't being played. Like if you were just looking at a Mortal Kombat arcade system, it was there.
But that's the thing. This game was simple as a fighting game. It was simple enough. Oh, I was wrong. It was 93. You're right.
Hey, okay. So 2 years after hilarious misfire.
But the thing about most fighting games, even though Street Fighter still managed to find a way to make it weird, Mortal Kombat had a simple enough lore that just adapting it outright and just keeping to that as much as possible had a surefire winner.
Yeah, no, I think the big problem was making it PG-13 instead of R because we're talking about a video game series where people get frozen
Blood
and
and guts
shattered.
was the point.
Yeah. And the movie, bless its heart, tried to adapt some of the weirder elements of the video game, like the fact that some characters can shoot fireballs from their hands, which Liu Kang gets to do exactly once at the end of the movie.
I think probably they were their CG was probably one of the worst areas. The scorpion.
That's
spear.
That's a weird case where in the video game it's just a regular. I can't remember what
rope.
the word.
It's a rope and like kunai or something like
kunai.
that.
Yeah. It's just a spearhead on the end of a rope, and he just throws it. In the movie, however, that would have been, of all the elements, that would have been the easiest to adapt to the movie. It's not a ball of energy coming out of your hand.
I think I know where it came from. I think I know where it came, because by the second one, I think he was. Well, he originally.
He's undead.
He's undead, but then I think by the second one on, he became more undead. So I think now it does. I think just coming from the movie itself, I think they probably adapted it.
More undead.
I mean, he became more garishly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the first movie, he does at one point take off his mask, which also removes his human flesh, and there's just a skull underneath.
Because that was always one of his fatalities.
Yeah, in the first game, he does that, and then he spews flames out of his mouth and burns you to death.
I think from the movie on, they just made it so it did come out of his hand.
Yeah, if you've never seen the movie, listeners, instead of using a kunai, a spear on a rope, he holds up his right hand and his palm opens up down the center, and this weird snake creature comes out of it and chases Johnny Cage.
Because even in the games now, it's still like a chain and and like a spear or a spike. In this, it was like some weird living toilet snake.
Yeah, basically.
It actively searched for you like a tentacle.
I'm not going to the bathroom.
But in terms of like game to movie accuracy, it was pretty damn close.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought all of these 7 main characters. It's especially funny to look back on the video game series. The very first one started with 7 characters: Liu Kang,
Yep.
Sonya Blade, Johnny Cage.
I remember the song lyrics because they would use they would use
that was the entirety of the song lyrics, just saying their names:
Yeah.
Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Kano.
Raiden.
And Raiden.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So 7 characters to now, like, when they included everybody, when Mortal Kombat 9, the game came out, it was 40 plus playable characters.
And then even previously when they did like the anthologies with like the first 3 games all combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's been the original Sub-Zero, there's been his little brother Sub-Zero, there's been his undead zombie fight noob Cybot, there's been robot Sub-Zero.
There's a Sector, Cyrax, and the Smoke.
Yes, all the ninjas.
Cyber ninjas.
The cyber ninjas.
They called them Cyber ninjas.
Yeah, all of them.
And
in
of
the game were
course,
just
all the horror movie.
Yeah,
characters.
the games started bringing in horror movie
There's
icons.
Ermac, the character that came to be because I think in the second game arcade attract screen, the maintenance screen.
Error macro.
Yeah, there was a thing for error macros, how many there had been, but it just said, since there weren't enough letters, it just said Ermax, and they thought that was a character, so they made him one just because. All right.
I mean, which Mortal Kombat game was it that had the character of meat? That was literally just a fighting slab of meat.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I want to say it was 9.
Might have been.
Maybe earlier. Or maybe one of the ones that ditched the numbering format and was just like Mortal Kombat Deception. I don't know. Mortal Kombat.
Let's not talk about those so much.
Yeah. My love for Mortal Kombat got rekindled about this time last year because 11 came out, and it is one of the few video games that my wife Katie will play with me, and she loves it as much as I do too. What was it, 4?
Mortal Kombat 4.
Wow, Mortal Kombat 4 introduced us to meat.
That's awesome.
Good fucking God. I'm sorry. If you want to Google image search Mortal Kombat meat and keep safe search on.
He's got Plex, man.
He's wearing gray tights that are ostensibly undies. It's basically a skinned man.
Oh, no, see, there was... I don't remember what I was looking at then. I saw something that was literally just like a big slab of beef.
I bet he was at the beginning, and then...
Now that...
Oh, okay, wow. Yeah, this is just muscle over
Bone.
over bone. That's hilarious. But yeah, so as far as adaptation accuracy goes, Mortal Kombat is pretty damn close.
Because honestly, the simpler the better. They kept it simple. It was you had to fight in this tournament to save Earthrealm, basically.
Yeah, a couple of Earth warriors, quote unquote, get invited to fight in this tournament to protect the Earth realm from getting invaded. Now, don't take my praises for accuracy to mean that this is a good film.
No.
But it is delightfully bad.
And it does what it needs to do.
Yeah, it's exactly what it needs to be. Katie and I watched she had never seen it, so I showed it to her about this time last year, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. No, it really doesn't.
They understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the fight choreography isn't horrible, even for that time.
Johnny Cage has a signature split punch where he drops down in the game and he basically punched someone straight in the balls, and he does it to Goro. They have an animatronic Goro face make the face of someone who's been hit in the balls.
Yes, and it just makes me wonder how much money did that cost. The special effects were pretty damn good in
and
places. Goro looked pretty damn good on screen.
Yeah, they made him practical. Like I said, they did use CG in the movie, but I think it was mainly just for like the energy weapon effects, or like the ice, or the spear thing.
Yeah.
If they did a contemporary adaptation of it now, especially after those that Zoe Bell, and then
I think they're working on one.
Yeah, there's a new Mortal Kombat film adaptation in the works, and I'm really excited about it because the cast looks great.
Yeah, with the stunt work that can be done now, and of course the special effects that can be done now for it. And if they go back to we're saving the Earth, on a battle planet after Avengers and stuff like that, the idea of this actually being a thing. I think that could be a really interesting
concept.
John Wick, Kill Bill type, fight.
Now, having said all of that, I recommend watching the Mortal Kombat film. 1, knowing what you're getting into,
and 2, never watching the second one.
Well, that was going to be my point. 2, watch it for free. It's streaming on Netflix right now. And 3, do not watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation, because good God. It was on, back when Katie and I had Sling, it was on some channel one night, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I turned it on, and Katie watched about 5 minutes of it and was like, what in the hell is this? It is
to say nothing
bad.
To say nothing of the TV show that piggybacked off the second movie.
Was that Conquest?
No, maybe.
Because there was the animated TV show,
but there was a live action show too.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that was Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Yes, it was in the same arena as like Xena and Hercules, that level of serialized adventure. Yeah. But they tried to be more serious in those.
Yeah. I remember I did watch that series, and
I saw bits of it.
I watched it. It lasted for 1 season, if I recall correctly, and then it ended up with a massive plot hole inducing, because it was supposed to be in the same continuity as the first movie, and I guess ostensibly the first 2 movies. But I guess they were expecting a sequel, or it's not a sequel, a second season out of it. Because
don't worry, guys, that second season's in the bag.
Yeah. Well, the first season ends with the bad guys winning the Mortal Kombat tournament, which should have made the events of the first 2 films like impossible. So I assume they were banking on that second season. Instead, it ended on a giant plot hole.
Oh, so they predicted Mortal Kombat 9.
Yeah.
Where everything goes to shit.
All right, so those are our picks for current, well, not even current, but existing video game movie adaptations. So real quick, because we spent a lot of time talking about Resident Evil.
Again, I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. That was a fun discussion.
It was fun.
Let's talk real quick about video games that have not been adapted, or that have, and we'd like to see them get done better. So Stan, what are your pick or picks?
I actually do have wish lists for this, and I think GTA may be in process, but I would like to see GTA, specifically 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, adapted especially because of the 3 lead characters.
I know they talked about it before, and they tried before maybe to start getting it off the ground, but the characterizations alone in that game, the game itself is super cinematic. The voice acting is brilliant. So a live action version. Stephen Ogg could play Trevor.
Yeah, exactly. All 3 main characters could carry movies on their own. It's great. The game is great. The plot is great. Because it's first person and you're playing open world. Just the adventure of it, brilliant, super cinematic. I think I'm with you, Chris, in the sense that I've heard that it's in process of being made.
They've tried. It's kind of like Halo. It's been rumored and all that before, and it would really work because I think it would really work to me if, as long as they kept it not like PG-13, but like R, but light, like as in terms of tone, because the world of GTA is this very weirdly like Quentin Tarantino times 10 in terms of overblown profanity, violence, obscenity, anything,
casual racism,
everything going on in the background of.
But it's super funny.
It is super funny because it's so over the top.
The humor is so blatantly in your face, and every character in it is super humorous.
As long as it was kept like as an irreverent crime story, it would work.
And the crime stories in it, it being a heist film, great.
Yeah.
And then the second one is my personal favorite. Well, I guess I can't, but I don't know if Skyrim could ever be made into a movie. But the Fallout series turned into a film, which I've casted a billion times. But talk about an adventure, and in the fact that we're in a post-apocalyptic moment now, and the fact that post-apocalyptic dystopian universes, and it could be argued that versions of Fallout have been made 1,000 times before, but just to be blatantly, a Fallout movie, I think is my greatest wish. As much as I would love to see GTA 5 done, I would say GTA San Andreas would be a great film too. But
that would have to be specifically set in 90s California.
But GTA 5, just the characterizations alone, and it has 3 of the greatest characters ever made for video games, I think. But my personal favorite would be the Fallout series. I think would be a great cinematic journey.
Now, would you like to see them as film adaptations or as like a mini series or television show?
I would venture to say that Fallout would probably be best, in the sense that it's so big and expansive that a series, it could be one season or whatever, and it's so an extended miniseries, but the idea that it's so big and so expansive, there's so many different storylines in it, and because there's so many versions of it, because it takes place in Boston, then there's a Washington D.C. version, there's California version, so it's like the idea that it's New Vegas would be a great adaptation to a film.
It's one of the strongest parts of the series.
It's great, but GTA 5, I think you could, or a GTA film could be done in a single-handed, but maybe a 3-part series too. But I think you could do GTA as a series.
I could see it being as a movie, especially of GTA 5, or you could do limited series with multiple seasons and start with, say, like GTA 5. You could do GTA 4. Those two would be modern. Like GTA 3, I would swing that all the way back to the early 2000s.
You could do a Westworld type thing with that.
GTA 3 would be, and then because you have San Andreas and Vice City, those are specifically set in certain time periods.
Exactly, and the one that is about the gangsters, Big Tony, or that's
The Ballad of Gay Tony.
Ballad of Gay Tony.
Yeah,
that's an offshoot of 4.
I think that would be a great.
Those.
You could do that.
Vice City is the one I would be most interested in.
Vice City is great
because 1, 80s tastic.
Yep.
2, Ray Liotta voiced the Tommy Vercetti.
Yep. The color scheme.
It's almost a well-contained movie on its own.
Yeah.
So yeah, the GTA stuff I think would be great cinematic adventures. And I would, and if it was a series, you could count that on the short list of series that I complete. So both that and Fallout.
Nice, Chris.
I've got a few. Two are rolled up into one in terms of I would love to see even just one and done movies because they would work perfectly as those. I would love to see, and like I was saying about different time periods, I would love to see Final Fight adapt the sister. The sister genre to the fighting game is beat 'em up. And Final Fight is one of the finest examples. I would love to see it be like a mid to late 80s setting, Metro City, which is definitely not New York, where Mayor Hager takes to the streets with some friends of his and just decides to beat the crap out of the gang overrunning the city after his daughter is kidnapped. It's such an easy setup for a game. It's an easy setup for a movie. As they brawl their way to the guy in charge of the gang and kick his ass. And the other one I rolled up with that one is like Streets of Rage is the same type of thing. And they just came out with Streets of Rage 4, which is fantastic, by the way. Both of those games, easy premise, as long as you set it back like in like where the first games were originally came out in that kind of 80s grungy inner city type of area. I think it's a perfect setup for a fun one-off movie. What else? Oh, geez, they just fell out of my head. I know I would love to see. This is kind of an odd one, but there is a series of RPGs called The Bard's Tale, but I want to say in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, they came out with a version. It was originally on PS2, and they've re-released it since, that I would love to see adapted into a movie, because it was in the same line of it didn't take itself seriously. The entire point was it to be irreverent. They had a version of The Bard's Tale where the bard was this kind of lazy, slack-off ne'er-do-well who suddenly is charged with beating the big evil, dominating the kingdom. He proceeds to try to avoid responsibility as hard as possible, and is constantly in an argument with the narrator of the game. And slowly but surely he finds a way to defeat the big bad. And I love this version of the game. I played it to death when I had it, and the hook was the bard was voiced by Carrie Elways.
Nice.
The narrator was the late great voice actor Tony Jay. And I would love to see that readapted into the screen, where again it works perfectly as, because a lot there's been plenty of stories about like just a kind of a low life being forced into doing the right thing kind of deal, and the game was securely tongue in cheek, and I would love to see it adapted for a movie. There's one part of the game where you somehow acquire like a dog. A dog starts following you around. You start to, and just as you form an attachment to it,
oh, no.
and at the end of a boss fight, it helps you beat the monster and it dies. But then immediately,
oh my god,
it resurrects and it becomes a zombie puppy, and it's exactly the same for the rest of the game. It still loves you, but now you just have a zombie puppy.
Okay, I'd be fine with it.
And then there are these little, like some of the evil creatures of the big bad follow you around at some points, and as things get worse or you have to work your way through more of this crap, they sing to you like Oompa Loompas from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, with the refrain of it. I believe it sure sucks to be you, or something like that, or it's so sad to be you, I think is what the refrain is. Up to the and this continues all the way up to the point of you have the options of either at the end of the game either beating the big bad evil queen. It was a woman, and that's important for the ending because you can either beat her or you can shack up with her and seduce her, basically.
Shack up and seduce,
and that's how you basically save the day either way.
Nice.
And I had another idea for an adaptation, but I can't remember what it is.
Well, if you think of it, we'll mention it on the next episode.
Okay. What are your ideas?
For me, and now the first one is going to be an odd example because it's a video game that was adapted from a movie.
Right.
That I would then like to see adapted into a TV show. It's Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
From the movie into a video game in the early 2000s. I'd love to see it get like the HBO treatment. And of course, they've been trying to make it happen for 20 years now. I'd love to see Halo get adapted into a series. And I think all these work best as series because, like I said, I think one of the big failings of video game movies is you're taking extremely long games with a lot of plot and trying to condense them, in a lot of cases, again, not Mario Brothers, down into a 2.5 hour movie. But ultimately, what I would really love to see get like a 10 episode, 8. Yeah, you know exactly where I'm going. 10 episode HBO season, Mass Effect.
I kind of figured you'd
all
come
three.
up with that one.
Yep. Oh yeah,
And
all three of them.
I would do all 4.
Yeah, go ahead, do all of them. That is my dream job. It would be to direct or be the showrunner.
Peter Jackson eyes Mass Effect.
Yeah, for HBO or Showtime or Hulu, whatever. I want so bad to make a Mass Effect series happen.
You know, I said for me, you know, it was Fallout and Grand Theft Auto, but just because I think those are perfect, you know, cinematic adventures for games. But the Mass Effect series,
yeah. And you could play one of the admirals.
I could be one of the admirals.
It would be your dream come true.
I would want to be the bull creep or the
Krogan.
Krogan. I'd want to be a Krogan. Mass Effect me. I mean, CGI me, mocap me as a Krogan. The Krogans are great.
Yes, they are. That would be hilarious watching you walk around a set in an all blue skin suit pretending to be a Krogan.
I do that at
Having
home
to
anyway.
remember you have like 4 times your mass.
Yeah.
But there's such great characters.
Yeah.
And every character in that series, even the basically NPCs in that. The minor characters are so great in Mass Effect.
Absolutely. Chris, did you think about the other one?
No, and it might have been GTA, because I know I thought about that one too prior to coming in, but I should have written them down. I can't remember. But my dream would be Final Fight.
Nice.
But it wouldn't. But again, it's like I said, it wouldn't work in a modern context.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it has to be set in the time it was originally dreamed up.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that is going to do it for our video game movie adaptations episode of Long Walk Talks. Now, last time that we did an episode of This Is a Takeover with Shelby Ray and Gina Belmont, I said that the host of This Is a Work, David Two Dogs Hayes, wasn't going to be doing an episode for Money in the Bank, the upcoming WWE pay-per-view. Chris looks like he's about to cringe here.
No, go ahead.
Dogs originally had not wanted to do a podcast for Money in the Bank, which this episode that we're recording now is going to come out on Saturday, the 9th of May. The pay-per-view is Sunday the 10th. Dogs didn't want to do a podcast for pay-per-views that did not have audiences. It's just a weird experience to watch. So what I said and what he had told me originally, and I said on This Is a Takeover, was that he was going to be live streaming his responses through the Long Walk Talks and This Is a Work Facebook page. And there's still a possibility that could happen. So if you haven't already subscribed to us and you're a wrestling fan, you should, so you get notifications about when or if he decides to go live. But he has decided that he does want to do a podcast on Money in the Bank. So sometime within a week of that pay-per-view airing, there will be an episode of Money in the Bank coming out. And then in a couple of weeks, we will have our continuing Quarantino discussion where we will discuss a double feature of Natural Born Killers and True Romance. So
we're not doing Jackie Brown.
That'll be next.
That'll be after that.
That'll be in June.
All right.
So, so be on the lookout for those episodes, the Money in the Bank episode of This Is a Work and the double feature True Romance Natural Born Killers episode of Long Walk Talks. If you have any thoughts about video game adaptations into movies that you'd like to share with us, any hard feelings or anything you'd like to see adapted, feel free to comment on our Facebook page or email those thoughts to me and I'll read them in our next episode. Send those to david.longwalk@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoy this show and any of our sister podcasts, This Is a Work or This Is a Takeover, please leave us a review and a rating on whatever platform that you are listening on. So Stan, thank you very much. Chris, thank you for being here, and we'll be back soon, you, me, and Dogs, to record This Is a Work. So for now, enjoy your quarantine.
Peace out.